On a bright afternoon, a guy named Frank experienced newfound freedom after a 14-year stint in prison. Once a formidable mafia leader overseeing illicit enterprises in New York City, he discovered that his influence had significantly waned upon rejoining society. The drug and prostitution scenes were now dominated by the Colombian and Chinese syndicates, sidelining Frank's old allies. In a different area of the city, Emilio, a figure in the Colombian sex trade, left his establishment and headed to a public phone. Out of the blue, a sudden hail of bullets took Emilio's life, catching him off guard. The attackers displayed Emilio's lifeless form, while the newspaper announced Frank's release. Simultaneously, in a hotel room, Jimmy was negotiating a drug deal with King Tito, a Colombian drug lord. King Tito, annoyed by Jimmy's constant chatter, unexpectedly raised the price by 10%, leaving Jimmy surprised. Reluctantly, Jimmy handed over a suitcase for the transaction, only to find it filled with tampons. Seizing the moment, Jimmy mercilessly took down King Tito and his crew. After dealing with the Colombians, Jimmy and his gang rendezvoused with Frank in a different hotel room. It became clear that Jimmy's crew was behind Emilio's assassination, with Frank revealed as their boss. Welcoming Frank back, Jimmy reported the successful elimination of Emilio and King Tito, along with seizing their assets and money. Jimmy also briefed Frank about a scheduled meeting with a middleman named Delicio, prompting Frank to prepare for a departure to an upscale meeting venue. Frank received a warm welcome from his legal team, a group of politicians, and a district judge. He then approached Delicio, seeking assistance in setting up a meeting with a drug cartel boss named Clay, under the guise of restarting his business ventures. After Delicio departed, Frank took a stroll in the subway with counselor Jennifer. Meanwhile, Delicio reached a lively gambling establishment where Clay and his friends were. Delivering Frank's message, Delicio faced resistance as Clay rejected the idea of a meeting, mocking Frank for affiliating with rivals and expressing a preference for dealing solely with Colombians. Dismissing Delicio, Clay instructed him to convey the rejection message. The scene transitions to a bustling subway car where Frank and Jennifer were enjoying themselves. Suddenly, three individuals approached, attempting to taunt Frank. However, upon noticing the concealed gun under Frank's jacket, fear overcame them. Instead of harming the thugs, Frank showed compassion by handing them a stack of cash and inviting them to meet him in a hotel room. Following the earlier confrontation, Frank and his crew, guided by Delicio, swiftly moved to meet Clay. Frank emphasized that moving forward, all business operations must involve him. However, Clay adamantly refused to cooperate, prompting Frank to decisively eliminate him. With Clay out of the picture, Frank rallied his former associates to join him. Subsequently, he visited the mayor, questioning the delay in releasing funds for a Bronx hospital. The mayor argued that no budget had been allocated, challenging Frank to raise $16 million on his own. Surprisingly, Frank accepted the challenge despite his lawyer's advice to let it go. While enjoying a drink, three detectives named Tommy, Roy, and Dennis abruptly escorted Frank away. Despite the lawyer's attempts to intervene, the detectives paid no heed, taking Frank against traffic flow to avoid leaving traces. Arriving at a desolate alley, they presented Frank with an injured and unconscious man named Enrico. Frank, sadly claiming ignorance, angered the detectives, but lacking evidence, they were unable to arrest him. Enrico, as it turned out, was a leader from the Colombian drug cartel, and the detective suspected Frank's involvement in the deaths of the three previous kingpins. These incidents occurred after Frank's release from prison. Simultaneously, Delicio met with Wong, a triad boss from China, in a movie theater to convey a business message from Frank. Wong insisted on receiving cash payment for an item weighing 220 pounds. Recognizing Frank's financial constraints, Delicio suggested a face-to-face meeting between Wong and Frank to reach a mutually beneficial agreement. The next day, Jimmy stopped at a fast food store, generously giving money to an elderly woman and her grandchildren. Suddenly, detectives and police officers appeared out of nowhere, attempting to ambush him. Jimmy found himself surrounded and unable to escape, leading to his arrest on charges of killing several Colombians, with Enrico's testimony as evidence against him. Meanwhile, Frank visited a struggling hospital in the Bronx, desperately in need of government funding. He restated his proposal to Wham, but they couldn't agree on the price for Wong's belongings. Frank suggested a partnership, where they would sell the items together, sharing the profits to benefit the hospital. However, Wong insisted on receiving cash for everything. Back at the hotel, Frank received news of Jimmy's arrest. Fueled by determination, Frank ordered his crew to quickly secure Jimmy's release. Later that night, Jennifer and the crew were sent to free Jimmy from custody. The three detectives arrived at the scene and were furious to witness Jimmy being set free. Jennifer warned them that if they didn't agree, the matter would be taken to court. Sometime later in Chinatown, Frank and his men arrived, swiftly identifying the Chinese gangs. They ruthlessly eliminated all the tribe members. After the massacre, Frank and his men arrested Wong, forcing him to reveal all his possessions. To make matters worse for Wong, even after handing over everything, he was not spared and met a swift end. A few days later, thanks to Frank's generous donation, the Bronx hospital opened its doors to the public. This news infuriated Dennis, who believed that Frank had become the king of New York, while they were stuck in meaningless jobs. He contended that the law favored Frank, who had all the money, making it impossible to catch him by playing within the system. To take action, Dennis suggested a group of detectives should confront Frank, creating a competition-like situation between gangs. However, Roy disagreed with Dennis's plan, but Dennis paid no attention to his objections. One night at a lively club, Frank's crew was enjoying a party, while Frank himself was occupied with a phone call. After some time, Delizio arrived with a drug cartel boss from Los Angeles. This man knew that Frank possessed a 200-pound item from Wong and wanted to purchase it. Unable to pay the full amount, he proposed paying half up front and the rest after the sale in Los Angeles. Frank, however, insisted on selling the entire item at once. In response, the man requested time to inspect the item first. Unexpectedly, as soon as he stepped outside, he killed one of the guards, revealing Delizio's collaboration with him. It didn't take long before armed men stormed the scene, causing chaos to erupt. In the midst of the shootout, Frank successfully helped Jimmy escape, but one attacker held onto their car door. When Jimmy tried to knock him out, they discovered he was a cop. Without mercy, Frank brutally struck him with a fire extinguisher. Witnessing their partner's demise, the remaining attackers gave chase. It turned out they were none other than Tommy and Dennis. A high-speed chase ensued, accompanied by intense gunfire. After being pursued for a considerable time, Frank finally evaded Tommy and Dennis, successfully losing the trail in the car. As Tommy and Dennis searched for them, Frank suddenly crashed his car into theirs, causing a violent collision. Seizing the opportunity, Jimmy opened fire before making a final escape. Seeing this, Tommy hurriedly exited his vehicle to pursue Jimmy, while Dennis failed to locate Frank in the crashed car. Under a bridge, a sudden shot rang out, hitting Tommy. Jimmy didn't stop there, mercilessly pumping more bullets into Tommy's body, leaving him gravely wounded. In an unexpected turn, Dennis arrived and shot Jimmy multiple times, ending his life. After taking down Jimmy, Dennis rushed to aid Tommy, but sadly, his efforts were in vain. Tommy couldn't be saved, leaving Dennis filled with a mix of emotions. Overwhelmed by sorrow and remorse for his fallen comrades, Dennis couldn't bring himself to stay at the funeral. Choosing to leave the procession, he entered his car. To his surprise, another car approached, and to his amazement, Frank rolled down the window, promptly ending Dennis's life before calmly walking away. Back at headquarters, Frank confronted Delazio, who had been apprehended by his men. During the interrogation, Delazio revealed that Enrico had collaborated with the police to eliminate Frank. Delazio admitted to receiving a payment of $50 million and being promised freedom in exchange for disclosing the location of Frank's headquarters. Upon hearing this, Frank ordered his men to bury the traitor along with the blood money under the cover of night. Worry returned home to find Frank already waiting for him. Frank admitted to killing Clay, who had amassed $13 million through gambling scams, as well as Wong, a Chinatown businessman involved in illegal immigrant trafficking, and King Tito, the orchestrator of the child prostitution industry in New York City. He defended his actions, stating that he only dealt with those who deserved consequences, even if they had taken the law into their own hands. Frank also issued a warning about hiring an assassin to target anyone involved in his case. Before departing, Frank instructed Roy to handcuff himself to a chair. However, as soon as Frank left, Roy swiftly broke free and pursued him into the subway. Inside a subway car, Frank used a passenger as a shield. Despite Roy's pleas to surrender, Frank mercilessly ended his life. Frank then calmly exited the station and hailed a taxi, revealing that he had sustained a serious gunshot wound from Roy. Meanwhile, the police were alerted to the shooting and arrived at the scene. The taxi driver, who witnessed Frank holding a gun, promptly exited the vehicle and informed the police. They began surrounding the taxi, placing Frank under siege. Weakened by his injuries, Frank eventually succumbed to his wounds and bled to death. The moral of the story is to lead a peaceful and law-abiding life, avoiding involvement in illegal activities as it can lead to chaotic and unfortunate consequences. It is always better to be a law-abiding citizen than a misguided leader of a criminal organization. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell if you want to watch more videos like this. Thank you for watching and see you again soon. Take care.